Alright, Path of Exile players, so let's talk about the Path of Exile, I'm going to put in quotations, drama that is going around right now. And it has to do with Path of Exile 2 basically taking too much resources for POE 1 to be able to have its next league. Now, if you're asking this question, I actually think it is a pretty dumb subject to get upset about this because, well, you know, developing games is sometimes a thing where there's so many unforeseen circumstances, whether it be other bugs that they need to fix or other game-breaking things or server issues. I remember the Path of Exile 2 launch actually took a little bit longer than what we had anticipated. It got pushed back. But at the end of the day, the reason why people are talking about this now, and I was actually unaware of this until someone mentioned it in my live stream. They're like, what are your thoughts on the new POE like situation? And I actually had to look it up. So anyways, it was posted not too long ago, but basically to sum it up, Path of Exile 1 will not be getting its league because, well, they just took the POE 1 team and they forced them to work on POE 2. And originally they said that they weren't going to do this, and essentially that they were going to have two separate teams for this. But basically, he also stated that we have some problems, whatever, with Path of Exile 2 when it's on fire right now. And I genuinely didn't really feel like Path of Exile 2 is on fire. And what they mean by that, not like it's hot right now, it's a good game. What they meant by that is that, like, it needs to be fixed. We need to put out the, you know, the problem. It's on fire. We need to fix this. And I actually had a lot of fun with POE 2. I think it's in a pretty good state, especially for an early access game. I mean, heck, I've gotten more hours out of this early access POE 2 game than a lot of action RPGs in its entire life cycle. So I felt like it was kind of weird, but I want to talk a little bit about the subject because some of you guys asked me my thoughts on it and I had to look it up. So for starters, I want to go ahead and mention, like, right now, if you look at like Path of Exile on Steam, and like you can see, like, I have thousands of hours over here, at least on my main Steam account, for Path of Exile 1. So, like, I play the game a lot, and I think the game is great. I actually prefer POE 1 over POE 2. If you were to rate the games side by side, I would say POE 1 is a better game. Now, obviously, POE 2 is in early access. They can fix a lot of these things. But I want to say that overall, I would say in the current game state, what game do I think is a better game overall? I gotta say POE 1. But you can see a lot of people are upset. This is nowhere near a mixed game. A mixed game is like, I don't know, 50-ish%. Path of Exile 1 is one of the greatest action RPGs of all time. Now, the reason why there is some drama going around is people are really mad. They're going to downvote games. It's very normal for gamers to go ahead and thumbs down video games if there's something that they don't like, even if the game overall is good. I remember, you know, some video games, they would get like negative reviews when really it's not like the game itself. So I want to go ahead and actually paint a picture for you guys. If you go look at the wiki for all of the previous leagues, right? Sometimes they're a little bit longer or shorter than others, but on average, it's about a 4-month cycle for like a brand new POE league. Well, this has gone on for a really long time, and we still don't have a new league since the Settlers League. And I think a lot of people are upset because we had the mindset that POE 1 and POE 2 are going to both simultaneously exist, which is a good thing. I was actually really happy to hear that we're not only going to get like new POE 1 leagues, but we're getting POE 2. And I was just thinking this is basically like two separate games, which is kind of cool. And I kind of like that the games are different enough, but there's a huge amount of things that I would like to see in POE 2 that I think could make the game a lot better. And I'll get into that in a moment. But the reason why people are really mad is it's been so long since they got a new season. If you play Diablo and you're like, okay, I just hopped into POE 2, well, why are people upset about this? It's because normally you'd get a season every once in a while, and POE 1 is no longer going to get its season. And in fact, there's no release date as of right now. You can see there's another content creator here talking about it named Gazzy. He's talking about how he's upset about this because they did say that POE 2 development wouldn't impact POE 1. And like he posted some certain like areas here, and just for reference over here, this is on the official Path of Exile website saying that like we're gonna announce the new league in early 2025. They're thinking late January is when they're gonna announce it. So now we don't even have like a timeline on like when it's coming out. So again, we could go maybe, you know, double or triple the amount of time without a new league for POE 1. And there's a lot of people that just personally prefer POE 1 over 2. And that's totally okay. Like I said, I enjoy both of the games, but I still would say POE 1 is a better game overall. But going back to some of the other points that were mentioned over here, you can see that they mentioned that they had to steal POE 1 resources just to basically get POE 2 running. And this is another area here where they said that they had to have guys on the POE 1 team help out for POE 2. And that's understandable because, again, certain times games get pushed back again and again. And I'm totally fine with games getting pushed out. sometimes in early access, I think there's a huge difference between like releasing something in early access, but I don't think that Path of Exile really needs a PTR. I know that Path of Exile at one point actually had PTRs. I did participate in one of the PTRs that they had. Some of these, by the way, are like actually closed. I remember for the Xbox, I got invited to like basically play test it before it came out. So there are certain people that may have access to these like PTRs basically, and for me, I don't really like playing PTR and PoE because at that time there wasn't like any like vendor that you could just max out your character. It was basically, well, you just got early access to it, and then you'd have to do everything, and it was in a very, very short amount of time, and then you'd have the next league launching. So I want to say, as far as it goes, I don't think we need like a PTR playtest here as far as like that goes to keep people entertained, because some people were saying, well, like just show us what you got and then maybe we can give some suggestions on how to fix it, kind of like how Diablo does it. And I like how Diablo does it because there's usually a vendor that can like max out everything, and also Diablo is a very fast game when it comes down to like PTRs and stuff like that. But then there's another content creator, Jung, which he posted saying the gap is closing, showing the viewers between PoE 2 and PoE 1, showing that like there's a lot of interest in PoE 1. And I always like coming back to PoE 1 when there is a new season, but he's basically showing off that like people really like PoE 1, and it's kind of, I don't know if I want to say like necessarily mocking PoE 2, but it's basically just showing that like there's a lot of players interested in it, and I think that's a good thing. But if you go look at like the player base, because someone mentioned this over here, and keep in mind this is a screenshot, so things could be subject to change in terms of when those screenshots were taken. But you see the difference between PoE 2 and PoE 1 is astronomically huge. I mean, it's been so long since Path of Exile 1 got a new league that it's kind of having a drought in terms of players, and that does affect the game in a lot of different ways, because if people aren't online to go ahead and trade items, that makes acquiring certain things to be a lot more expensive, or technically cheaper, depending on what item that you're looking at, because like there's no one that's playing, so they're just going to liquidate everything for cheaper if it's on the lower end. But again, the numbers are definitely huge in terms of the differences, and that is all due to them not having a league in so long. How action RPGs work all the time, this goes with Diablo, Torchlight, Path of Exile, they start off when the new league hits, everyone comes back and plays, and then, as the time goes off, people tend to go play other video games, or they're finished with the league, right? They're waiting for the next league, and it's been so long since PoE 1 has a league. I mean, these are really low numbers. I remember in, I think this was at GDC, I think it was 2019, it was Chris Wilson talking about, like, Path of Exile being designed to be played forever. And he was talking about, like, they need at least 10k concurrent players. If they dip below that number, then they run into problems. And so that could be something that they really kind of could consider, but since PoE 2 is probably generating enough revenue, it isn't really that big of a deal. And I've heard a lot of people talk about Path of Exile 2 just being so much more profitable because, well, it's the new game, and obviously they want to support the new game, so people buy more of the stuff in the game. And the thing that I find interesting with this is I don't necessarily see grinding gear games as like, oh, they just want as much money as possible, therefore PoE 2 is new, we want to just pump as much content into PoE 2 because then we need to sell more of the early access packs. The way I see it, and I have a lot of good faith with grinding gear games, and the reason why is this sole reason. The stash tabs from PoE 1 work with PoE 2, so therefore, like, your currency is kind of just spread out between both the games. You get the best of both, which is basically you buy it in one game and you get it in the other. They could have easily said for PoE 2 you have to rebuy stash tabs, and people would have been like, okay, I totally understand that. But then they also have the essences tabs. All of those tabs that would be similar, you would get an equivalent in PoE 2. So the way I see it, I do not see it in any way, shape, or form like, oh, they just want as much money as possible. PoE 2 is like the new game. After they've been working on Path of Exile 1 for so long, it's cool that we're still even getting content. I'm even surprised that we're still getting content for PoE 1. That's like new content, because like I also play a lot of Diablo 3, and Diablo 3, I believe the last season was season 29. After that, it basically reset it all of these seasons, and then you'd kind of cycle through them. But the fact that we're still getting new content, again, it's all free too, I'm just happy with that. And I would rather them take the time, if PoE 2 is not, or PoE 1 is not ready because of PoE 2 taking up all the resources, I'm all for that. There's going to be a lot of other action RPGs coming out. There's actually going to be a game that I'll be talking about very soon. I'm actually should be getting earlier access to it. It's called Dragonkin. It's not, this is not a sponsored video or anything like that, but I will show you guys what's in that game, because it actually does look like it has some potential for another action RPG. We also have Last Epoch and Titan Quest 2. So by all means, the way I see it is take your guys' time. I'm excited to see what you guys deliver, and I think it's going to be actually a pretty big like season or league mechanic. And the reason why I want to say it could be very big is because, well, you have a lot of people from POE 2 kind of hungry for more. POE 2, for a lot of people, is their first Path of Exile game, and then they would be more inclined to try out Path of Exile 1. So I'm hoping that it's going to be a very, very awesome new season or like league, essentially. But I also wanted to mention, like, the reason why I would rather them take their time, to be honest, a lot of times when these POE leagues launch, within the first week, they really need to like do a lot to these, whether it's some tuning. I remember when Arch Nemesis came out, it was way overtuned, and you know, sometimes that happens, but they're relatively fast within the first week. Heck, Diablo's been pretty fast with this too. I think games in general have gotten a lot more streamlined in terms of like fixing things a little bit faster, but this is something that you know, I'd rather it not turn into a Cyberpunk situation. I know technically POE 1 is already like finished like the game, but the league mechanics sometimes they come out a little bit broken, and I'd rather it just come out really good. Now I kind of want to also mention some of the other things that I wanted to talk about, because as far as like the whole drama situation, I think it's a really stupid thing. I think it's dumb to go downvote POE 1 and say like, oh man, you guys promised. You guys typing in that kind of stuff in terms of the comments, like it's something that's not going to change. It's not going to make them speed up any faster. And I think that there's a very slim chance that they would decide to see those comments and say, all right guys, let's halt POE 2, let's work on POE 1 League. I just don't think it's going to happen. But to be fair, I genuinely think POE 1 is a better game, but I also like Diablo 2 more than Diablo 4. But I'm going to be playing POE 2 because it's new. Now, I don't mind going back to POE 1 for like a league, but I'd rather POE 2 be better. So I want to offer them some suggestions just in case they are kind of watching. In fact, in one of my suggestion videos, I felt like they straight up just watched my video because they implemented almost every single thing. And I already kind of mentioned why, like, I think the next league is important. So as far as POE 2, one thing that I think they did really well was, like, there's new classes, new gems, ascendancy that's kind of given. I like the graphics and visuals. I think the campaign for the first time, it's great. And the bosses, the first time you fight them, I think it's really awesome, especially in the campaign. But, like, when you get to the end game, if it's only one portal and it's your first time, technically I know with, like, Arbor they have changed that, but for the most part, it is a very, very rough journey, because if you fail, well, then you have to go reset the whole thing and get all the little, like, I don't know, it could be the breach splinters or whatever the case may be. I feel like it's really, really rough. So that, I would say, could be kind of bad in a sense too. But like, I think the bosses are pretty cool and epic as far as it goes. But as far as like POE 2 bad, like what are the things that I really want them to focus in on to really make it better? Because they kind of mentioned POE 2 being on fire, but I really don't feel like it's on fire. Like they absolutely have to, you know, fix a lot of things that are super hard to fix. Like, for example, I think that crafting is objectively way worse. This will take a little bit more time, because in POE 1 you have so many different forms of crafting. You can use benchcraft to block certain modifiers. You have prefixes and suffixes cannot be changed. Like, those things are very, very, very big. But this is something I think is going to take a really long time. Now, other things that I think could be fixed in the game a little bit easier is like melee and armor in general. I think kind of needs a easy band-aid fix for at least right now. I'm not going to say this is absolutely on fire, but it's mostly that if you're playing melee, in general, energy shields are so much better than armor, and it's just because, well, you have those like modifiers that just remove your armor completely. Like, just get that modifier and just like delete it for now. Later, you can start to fix other things in the game, but like the fact that like you can technically also remove all evasion, but like there's a monster that can just like throw that mod on you, that debuff, and it's just really nasty. As far as flasks go, you know, during the campaign, I actually didn't really mind pushing them, but I really don't like pushing them towards the end game, so like I just up for like life and mana on kill, so I could solve this, but these are pretty expensive things, and they're not easy for everyone to essentially solve. And then as far as it goes, I really think that the trade in general for POE 2 can kind of be looked at. I really hate the idea of like scammers and price fixers. Those are the main thing that I think is really bad, because a lot of newer POE 2 players always tell me that like no one responds on the trade websites, and it's due to, again, price fixing, essentially kind of scammers in a sense with that. But I just don't like, even in Diablo has this issue with D4. It's like, why don't we have like an in-game auction house system? And I understand their mindset is, well, then you could have bots buy out the items and then you can never utilize it. You could maybe make a trade system similar to, let's say, Last Epoch, where like you cannot flip the item. Once the item is traded one time, it is now then bounded to you. So that kind of prevents price fixing in terms of like people buying items to reflip them. And I think that there could be some middle ground. At the end of the day, just have it automated somehow in game. However they want to do it, they can throw a capture thing, whatever the case may be. I just think that it's so outdated. Even in Diablo 4, you have to go sign into your Battle.net on a third-party trade website, which, you know, some people are afraid to do. And then like you message them, they're not online. It's just such a like pain point in the game. I think that this could be looked at. As far as the end game, finding all the gold rare monsters or like the little gold skulls at the very end, I feel like that it's just better just to have the boss. I think that's totally fine. And then the map layout specifically, like doing the checkpoints, it was not even really a good band-aid to fix, because there's so many areas, especially like the map layouts in general. Okay, I'm not even just talking about Augury or like Evolve Factory, but like the map layout in PoE 2, they need to be more like a square or like a diamond shape versus like all these little spaghetti paths that have like very small narrow areas that you have to backtrack all the way back to. And I think that is kind of a pain point, because as you're walking back, there's nothing to eliminate, and it makes the game feel like it's a little bit dry in terms of like monster density, because you've killed everything essentially. And also like just in general, like I think levers and doors and action RPGs towards the end game, you could delete them. I think it's really rough for a lot of builds to get full like ailment immunity, specifically like stun and freeze. Yeah, I understand you can get the charms, but sometimes people want like the increased item rarity, which is almost something I should add in this like PoE 2 bad. But I know that it's like another premium stat that they kind of want to exist, just like in D2, where you sacrifice damage and or survivability to get more like item rarity. But I can like mention it like in terms of like it kind of being bad. I think this one's kind of more subjective than objective, but like I think objectively, having mobility is a little bit more enjoyable in the game, especially when it's trying to cross like a very small gap. That's where I really liked having mobility. This is like really early gameplay. I actually have like a 96% movement speed, and the game feels way better when you get like that increased movement speed. You get tailwind, and then even if you get like the extra shrine, the game feels pretty good. But in general, like no mobility for the campaign, I think it's actually not too bad, because then you actually have to like kind of dodge. I think it's fine for the campaign to not have it, but like when you get to maps, I think having mobility would be objectively just kind of better. Just one ability skill on each like character that you can maybe utilize in some sort of a way. It could have a cooldown. I don't know. I just think that, yes, I understand we have that dodge roll, but like I really feel like it's specifically crossing these small gaps versus going all the way around. That's kind of the pain point that I would say. Another pain point I would say that exists is doing the campaign for the second, third, fourth time. Like, I'm going to make all the classes for PoE 2, but man, it takes so long to go through the campaign. I know you can get like a Pillar of Cage God, and you can do like other things that can just speed the campaign process, but after doing it, I want to say that there could be some sort of like, I don't know, some sort of like system new game plus, where like when you've already defeated, I don't know, Arbiter, at some point they should just a little bit of movement speed, maybe like you unlock 10% movement speed for the campaign or 20%, just something to make it a lot less painful, because like you want your players to play multiple classes, right? And this would really help out. You know, Diablo does this a lot with like the XPs, something, I don't know, maybe XP boost. Also like dying and losing XP also is something that I would almost consider on a pain point. Maybe they can make it so once you're level like 98, it takes a really long time, but like before then, I think players should be able to try to achieve, like, I don't know, I don't think it's, like, really that bad if players can just hit 100 without, like, losing XP on death, but let me know how you guys feel about that as well, because I want this game to be good. And then as far as early access, I'm mentioning, like, I don't really mind if there's, like, bugs or glitches, or, like, there's sometimes where, like, on the map where, like, I legitimately can't even get to this, like, little island. It's, like, impossible to get to because there's, like, no way to path towards it. But I get it. It's early access. I'm not going to complain too much about these sort of things, but the things that I would say that maybe won't be changed unless we like talk about them, right? Because I expect most of these bugs and glitches to be fixed. But as far as like mobility, I think this is like a game design decision. Also, like rarity is like a game design decision that I want to say that it is kind of a pain point for some players. I think mobility specifically, again, just those small gaps. That's all I want to be able to do. Like maybe we can just dodge roll, or maybe like what you could do is like instead of a dodge roll, you get like a cartwheel as like some sort of like, I don't know, if campaign reward that you could like jump across or something. It's again, it's just those gaps that it becomes just annoying for me. I don't know if it's just me, but I really loved in PoE 1 how you could just dash across a gap. Anyways, I think they can also have better access for group play, specifically like the mana and life on kill. If you aren't getting the kills, you're just out of mana. And I think they could make group play a little bit better. But those are the pain points that I think exist. But I don't think the game is on fire at all. And this is kind of also answering the question, what are my thoughts on like the Path of Exile drama? I don't even think it's drama. It's just like, hey guys, we need more time. And people are taking it out of kind of context here and saying that they just want PoE 2, they don't care about PoE 1. I think they care about it. And the fact that they're still updating us is great news. Anyways, but that's going to wrap it up. If you guys enjoyed it, drop a like. If you're new here, sub and turn the bell if you guys want to see more, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.